Please rise and place the flag. I
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you.
Thank you. I need to get an approval of the agenda, please.
Second.
It's been promptly moved in second. Is any discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Ayes have it, and the agenda has been approved. We have requests for public input. We will open up now for any public input. I'm asking to be no longer than 5 minutes. Ms. Wood, I think you are on board for public input, so we'll appreciate you being here.
Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity to be here. Some of you may know that I had the pleasure of meeting with Danny Knight and Jan Bidding last Friday, and we discussed a lot of things about the budget. We spent a long time talking, about an hour and a half, but there were still other things I could have said, of course. But the main thing that I wanted to bring up to y'all regarding this budget is, first of all, this won't be any surprise to you. This is one of the most troubling budgets I've ever seen that the authority had. And the thing that troubles me the most is the amount of money that's going to need to be borrowed from closure and post-closure accounts between now and 2024, which I've figured at around $20 million. Part of that will be for construction, and part of it, a couple of million for landfill gas installation. But in my opinion, the landfill gas installation shouldn't come from closure and post-closure either, but because that's just for things that happen at the time. Those accounts are just for things that happen at the exact time of closure and post-closure, not anything that happens ahead of time. In thinking about all this, an obvious solution that comes to my mind, and it's something that I'd hoped that we would have had a chance to talk about before now, but it just hasn't happened, is an alternative, and that would be an alternative that I think could probably avoid borrowing that $20 million from closure and post-closure, and that would be going back to the plan that the Solid Waste Authority had when they first purchased the 1,187 acres, and that was to put the C&D landfill there. And that project was discussed for several years. Eventually, the Solid Waste Authority obtained state and federal permits for the project, for the wetlands impact for the projects. And I think the only reason that they never got a final DHEC approval on it is, according to my conversations with Justin Kuhn in the last couple of days, is that the permit application was never completed. It was just technically incomplete, and that may have been due to the fact that first of all, the Solid Waste Authority figured out another way that was more economical for them at the time, and that was to piggyback the C&D on top of an old unlined MSW landfill. Of course, they put a liner in between the MSW and the C&D, and that worked for a long time. In fact, it's still working in a slightly expanded form, and but spaces run out there, and when that the original state and federal permits were granted for the wetlands impacts, one of the conditions for those permits was that the capacity that was permitted for C&D at the time had to be exhausted, and that's pretty much happened now. It's exhausted, and so I'm just wondering why you couldn't go back to that plan and discuss it. In reading the minutes, I haven't seen any discussion of that as an alternative, and I personally think we've got the 122 acres cleared already. I've got the map for the original project. I can show it to you if anybody would like to see it, that shows where the 122 acre site was. And by the way, 122 acres is about twice as big as the 50 acres that the two borrow pits cover. So you'd have a large area. At the time, brought some scrapbook articles, and it said the lifespan would have, at that time they projected it to have a lifespan of 32 years, hold up to 7.7 million cubic yards of debris. And then Art Braswell was asked what the likelihood was of getting it permitted, and he said that 99% of the CND landfills that had an application in got approved by DHEC at the time. And so it seems to me, you know, given the fact, sorry, okay, if you may have any questions, I'll be happy to answer them.
Any questions? Okay. I thank you. We always appreciate the citizens' concern. We'll certainly appreciate you bringing that to our attention, and we'll take that into account.
Okay,
And thank you again for being
thank
here.
you very much.
Thank you. No other public input? No one has requested? There's nothing else on the agenda, so I'll take a motion for any all right, want to wait another 10 minutes? Well, I'll tell you what, we'll wait and see.
Jan has apprised me there's some revisions, and you might want to ask her about to
Jan?
present the revisions from the
Okay.
draft that we saw.
The only revision is to the unincorporated collection system. We have to wait and get final numbers, of course, from the county, and so there was a change in the overall budget from what's in your book here, from the $7,039,000 on page 69. Their overall change was to $6,703,668. And like I said, that just has to do, of course, with the funding availability. The county ends up giving us final approval on the figures. So that will be incorporated into the final budget.
And that's the only revision that you have?
Yes, sir.
Okay. It's my understanding this is basically, I'm sure we'll go over that at our May meeting.
Yes, sir.
What I'd like to do is leave this open for public input. We can discuss that, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
$6,703,668. 6703668 for FY 2020.
I don't know. It's the first public input I've been to, that I've been out in the parking lot looking for folk. That's a new one on me, but anyway, I haven't been aware of that. I appreciate Amelia.
He's gonna flag it down.
She sent her name in, she's here at 4 o'clock, she spoke, and that's what we do at public input.
He's gonna flag them down and invite them in.
Yeah, I'm not going to sit around and wait for 20 minutes to see if anybody shows up. So, while he's wandering the halls, I'm going to call for an adjournment. You see anybody out there you know? I'll take a motion for adjournment. It's been properly moved and second, so the meeting has been adjourned. Thank you.